It shows the camera going to people who are making noise.
I think that the.
I can tell you
Michigan
that.
Health is
I
on.
can tell you one microphone.
Oh, I see, it's over there, okay.
So we should be able.
Okay.
There's only 3 people.
Thanks for having me. Pete.
Oh, you got it. Good. Good.
Now, is the tarantula gonna talk to us tonight? Do you remember I told you that sound that they had sounded like that giant tarantula?
I'm hopeful we got that fish.
That was a scary movie too, I'll tell you.
Been here? Been
Not
good?
yet. As far as I know.
We got a quorum, I think.
We do.
Just barely, but, well, yeah, we got a quorum.
Yep.
But Ben isn't here yet.
We'll give him a courtesy 2 minutes.
Okay. If not, I'll pray for you. I can pray all the time, you know.
Well, I'll do it.
Okay. Whichever.
It doesn't get any surprises.
There's mainly 2 things that we have to handle tonight.
Yes,
It's
they're
the truck,
both complex.
it's the truck and the,
Yeah, but they're both
Here
complex.
he comes.
What time is it?
It's almost 10, I have a mask. Oh.
well, they have it up there front, but.
Do they?
I think they- But I've done that before, I've got halfway through the store, and I walk in the parking lot, and I figure out.
Ready?
I got apple
That's
door.
all I'm kind of-
I got
I
apple.
call this regular meeting of the Plainfield Township Board of Trustees to order. We'll begin with the invocation by Ben Green, followed by him leading the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we gather here tonight to attend to the business of our community, Plainfield Township. We ask that you be with us this evening as we make decisions on behalf of our residents. We ask that you grant us your wisdom so that we may do what is best for our community now and in the future. Lord, we ask that you bring us together in this election season. During these times of great division, help us to see the best in our fellow countrymen and women. Strengthen the ties that bind us so that we may grow closer together in unity, not further apart. Remind us that we have more in common than we sometimes remember. Lord, we ask that you watch over us tonight and always as we work to serve you and give you greater glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to be back live. Last time was a dry run, kind of, and now we're all business. Okay, at this point, we have public comments, and those of you who are here and wish to share things with the Township Board but are timid and don't want to come up and speak in front of people, there is a basket over there, and there is paper in it that you can fill out and write what you might have said and share it with Cameron, who will respond to it as appropriate. But for those who are here and want to address the Township Board on local governmental matters, now is the time to come to the podium and speak into the mic, name and address, please, and let us know what's on your mind. Yes?
My name is Helen Pfizer, 6468 Livingood Street, Northeast, Rockford, Michigan. I live in the Spring Valley Mobile Home Park. I want to address my board tonight with 2 hats on. First, I'll do my personal. I have been in a mini war with the owners of Spring Valley Mobile Home Park out of California. It's been ongoing since 2016. It's anything from not wanting us to have a neighborhood association to never having the peace, tranquility, or sanctuary of your home. In that mobile home park, we live under constant threat. The least little thing that we do wrong, we're threatened with eviction. I have fines against me right now. I've paid my lot rent. I've put my fines in escrow in a bank, pending legal determination if I have to go that far. And tonight, what I wanted to do is come here on the personal note first to say that I want my township out of the middle of this. I have an ordinance violation written up by Mr. McWaters. And it's ironic that it comes on the heels after a 3-page letter and a 4-page letter telling the owners and the management exactly what I was going to do. My lot is very wet. My outbuildings are underwater. I started a project on my own to get myself up out of the mud and the water. I let them know the date that I was going to start, that I was going to be taking all of my items out of my outsheds, placing them in my yard, so that I have one tent shed that I needed to raise up, put on treated skids to get out of the water. And on the very day that I started, they also came over to the township, the owners, the manager, and filed an ordinance complaint against me, which sent out my code compliance officer, who did not make contact with me, didn't say, Helen, what are you doing? What is this all about? Looks like you moved out into your yard. Took pictures and wrote me a code compliance violation. The area that he took pictures of has been totally eliminated and filled up 4 times since he's been out there. I have the tent shed finished. I am about to start on my tool shed. All of my tools are rusted. You are in water over your feet to walk into the shed. I just purchased another tent shed. We're allowed 2 sheds on a lot. I've talked to a neighbor. I said, Lord help me get into code compliance with owners again if I have 3 sheds. But I'm willing to set this up, install it, use it to put my tools in until I can fix my tool shed, and then I will donate the shed to my neighbor. And that's where I am with that. But I have never violated a township ordinance. I have never done anything illegal in my townships. I've been from other parts of the state, and any of those townships will tell you that I am very law-abiding, and it is insulting to me to have a code violation written up in my name, and that for the lowlifes that I believe is kind of underhanded for them to take the dates that I'm gonna start. So of course the township's gonna come out and they're gonna see all of my items in the yard. So I was written up with discarded household items, trash and garbage in my yard, which none of it's true. And it's gonna be ongoing because I still have to repair my other shed. That's my number 1 item. I wasn't sure if it was under public comments. I called. I didn't know if it had to be an agenda item. I'm not sure what your rules are, but I guess we're gonna get to be buddies.
Well, actually, our rules are that you have 3 minutes, and we were generous, and we appreciate you telling us what the problem is. And you are welcome to come back anytime, and you don't need to be on the agenda. And I'm sure that Cameron will, are you familiar with this at all? Okay, he's familiar with this, so there'll be a resolution. Hopefully, I assume a proper one.
I'm hoping so.
Thank you.
The other one is under the Neighborhood Association and the PFAS.
Let me stop you a minute. Gentlemen, ladies, do we want to continue, or shall we invite her to, you want this to speak to the Township Board, right?
I can submit it, I can FOIA, I can do whatever you want me to do.
Why don't we follow up with a phone call later? I think that'll be more productive.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
But
you.
thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, let's move to item number 5, review the consent agenda. There are a number of items, A through I, and I think a motion to approve the consent agenda, the agenda itself, and the accounts payable would be in order.
I move to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda and accounts payable.
I'll second that.
Moved by Jack, seconded by Bill. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman?
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes. Mr. Holman?
Yes. And before we go further, did any of you had an opportunity to view the last meeting that was recorded, although it had some audio interference? I noticed that the camera would switch to somebody because I think they had their light on and tried to, it's going to take a while, exercise what you need to exercise to keep your microphone off unless you're ready to speak. Good, thanks. All right, new business. There it is. Purchase of a large fire department vehicle for over $500,000. Cameron.
All right. Our fire department's been working on this for some time, so I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm just going to say I appreciate all their work. They've been working on this for, going on 2 years now. And I appreciate not only their work and diligence on this, but also their restraint. Initially this wasn't the exact truck they wanted to go for, but when that one was over budget, they went back to the drawing board not once but twice to make sure that they had something that met their needs, but it was also fiscally responsible. So thank you for that, and with that I'll let Chief and District Chief Drake take it from there.
Cameron said we've been working on this for over 2 years. I think me and District Chief Drake were talking before the meeting. I think we started this in 2018, honestly. We started going to vendor shows. I sent the crew, the committee to Indianapolis, to the national show, just to see what we can find, if we could find demos, if we could find something that was already built that would suit our needs. Found a lot of ideas, nothing really to suit our needs. So District Chief Drake and 3 other of the employees, firefighters and lieutenants, got together and started putting together a bid package with an area vendor. We did talk to you before that we were looking at going with a poly box. The bid came back, it was over budget, and we only had 1 bid. Brought it to Cameron at first and tried to skim it down, but we still didn't feel comfortable bringing it back to the board because it was still over bid and only one vendor bid. So we went back to the drawing board again. So we worked with that same vendor, getting a spec out there that allowed for different types of materials that the truck could be built out of, poly, including could be a poly box, an aluminum box, a stainless steel box. Still only received 1 bid from the same vendor, and this bid came in higher, and truthfully I didn't even want to bring it to Cameron, but I did. So then COVID hit. and it kind of put us, stalled us out a little bit. I had a discussion with Cameron, and we took a different approach. Instead of us asking for bids, we went searching for bids. We went searching for, can we find a demo out in the field that is from one of the vendors? We found some, they really didn't fit our need from what the committee was telling us. So we took the concept of, okay, when we go buy a personal vehicle, we go to Dodge, Chevy, Ford, and tell them what we want. So we did that same thing. We went to 4 vendors? 5.
We worked with 3, we got 4.
Yeah, we worked with 3 vendors, got 4 bids actually, and they built, the committee narrowed it down by using a point system, and Chief Drake will talk about this a little bit more, and narrowed it down to what we're presenting you today. Some of what this truck will replace in our fleet is that heavy rescue. The heavy rescue went out of service January of this year, 2020, had bad frame rails. It'll also replace a 1990 engine we've been pretty much babying and keeping it in service, but it's at its life expectancy. We refurbed it once. It's a 1990. The refurb lasts 10 years per NFPA, and it was done, I believe in 2012, so we're looking at 2022 where it needs to be reevaluated, sold, and out of our hands. Also with this new engine, it'll take more wear and tear off our 2008 frontline engines. The squads that we purchased 2 or 3 years ago really took a lot of wear and tear off those 2 engines. Now with both of those engines approximately around the mileage is 100,000 miles, but the hours are way up. They're higher than that. I don't quite know what the hours is, but they have a lot of hours on it. This new engine will take place of one of those 2008 frontline engines, put that 2008 into what we call second due or second out, and take a lot of wear and tear off it. So this purchase is actually budgeted over 2 years. We have $275,000 approved for this budget year, and then the remainder of the cost is projected is in the 2022 budget to be approved next week, hopefully, reviewed and approved for that, and that's how it will be financed over a 2-year process. Right now, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Drake, and he can explain a little bit more on the workings of this new engine and more on the process.
Thank you, Chief McKellar. It's a pleasure to be in front of you again tonight, Board. I want you to know that I don't take lightly, as Cameron alluded, or Bob alluded, $500,000. This is the 4th time I've been to the Board since my promotion in 1998 to Lieutenant, and have been the chair of the truck committee since then. It's my 4th time before you to make a purchase, and by far it's the most expensive one. Even though it's a singular truck, it is the most expensive, and the whole committee don't take that lightly. When we came in over budget and non-competitive, we were very concerned, and we kept at it and worked hard at this. By comparison, the trucks that this is replacing, the 2008 Rosenbauers, we bought 2 of those trucks in 2008 for $464,000. And this truck we're wanting to buy today is very similar to those trucks. So prices have just about doubled in the 10 years. Since we started this project 3 years ago, we have got constant notices from the vendors and the manufacturers about price increases. 5% every quarter of what the prices of these trucks have been going up. The tariffs from the federal government and the trade and the steel, I mean, we could talk all day about that, but we've experienced amazing increases in the cost of this truck as we've done this process. I've got a bunch of notes. Cameron and the chief both, I think, did steal a lot of my thunder, so let me get to that page, and then I'll see if you have any questions after couple of comments. Like Chief said, we started this process in 2018 at FDIC, the National Trade Show. We saw a poly-body box truck built by Spencer Manufacturing in South Haven, Michigan at this show in Indianapolis, and we were very intrigued by it. The thought of no corrosion, the thought of chipping the paint and not having to worry about boiling and blistering the paint coming off this truck was phenomenal to us, and it was a beautiful looking truck. Great use of space with the poly. You can custom build compartments for your items, and really got us intrigued. So we worked with Spencer Manufacturing designing this truck. As already been mentioned, it came in over bid twice. The last time we worked with them on this third venture, they committed to building this truck as a demonstrator unit with or without us. That's how impressed they were with the design that we built for the truck that we wanted. They're making some changes, but they are building that truck, unfortunately, without us now. And I know the next trade show, when I see that truck on the road somewhere, I'm gonna cry. But the product we're asking for is, we have great success with Rosenbauer. The local vendor that sells for Rosenbauer is Frontline Services out of, I say local, it's all relative, I guess, but they're in Freeland, Michigan, over in the Thumb area. Their warranty work, they stand by their product, and the last 2 truck purchases we made, which is 4 trucks total, they've stood by them, hands down. I mean, good customer service. So that's comforting to know with Rosenbauer and this purchase. I think the rest has all been talked about. I'd gladly entertain any questions you have or just comments you have on the design, purpose, anything you desire.
Questions of John? Jack?
First of all, I want to say I appreciate the thoroughness that you gentlemen have done for this project. I'm just thankful that we have a fire department and a committee and a chief that can be that conscientious. Just a couple of things. First of all, I have no doubt that you guys have been really thorough with what you've done, and I can see that in the summary being longer than what we're even used to reading. Just a couple of things. What would you say would be the chief reason that trucks need to be replaced? Is it corrosion? Is it engine life? What would you say would be the chief reason?
I would say corrosion and wear and tear of the moving parts. So moving parts of the box, the body box, where the stuff is stored, the doors, shelving, corrosion, and how that impacts those items.
One additional question, and this might tax your memory. I know it would me. What was the price of the Spencer Poly truck?
$568.
$568.
I think I have that right here. Let me verify that. I'm pretty sure I have it right here.
The second one was 630.
Oh, you're right. The first RFP was $568. Now it's up to $630.
$630.
630,000 was the bid that.
No, it's $568.
That was the current one, right?
That's the current. Is that what you're asking, the current, Spencer?
Yeah, if you were to buy it today.
The one we designed when it first came in 2019 prior to COVID, and it was the only bid, and it was non-competitive. It was 630 is what the chief is remembering. Now this price that they have here today is what they're calling their demonstrator unit. That's the truck. Is basically our design. They've changed, they've eliminated some things, and they have it down to $568 now. Correct.
And in your estimation, the $568, budget-wise or not budget-wise, we're talking some $56,000, $56,000. It would not be worth that extra.
I knew this question was going to come tonight. I wondered how I was going to answer it.
I mean, that's just
my
a
money,
personal opinion, and I realize that.
You know, I think I'm more conservative with the township's money than my own, and I'd have to walk away from it. This will do the job for us. We can fight corrosion. Everybody does it in Michigan. We can stay on top of it and work a little extra hard on doing that. And this is what I would do if it's my own money too.
So
I do think though in 10 years, it's gonna be, Poly's gonna, and the fire service is gonna take over.
in terms of, if you had said we wanted to go with the poly truck, would you have anticipated a longer life or not?
Yes.
Would have. Okay.
Problem, then, that earlier question, we would go more to the engine failing before the body fails with corrosion.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Ben?
I'd like to echo, first of all, what Jack said regarding the diligence. Thanks, guys, for all the work that goes into this. I know it's a lot. The heavy rescue, if my memory serves, that was a situation where the DOT did the inspection and said, we're not going to give you another year. You're going to have to figure out a solution, correct? I'm remembering that the right way. And then the other side of that was, if I remember, a lot of the equipment on that apparatus is becoming obsolete, the pneumatic stuff. Is that what I remember, that we can do a lot of that with battery-operated stuff now?
We did purchase battery-operated hydraulic rescue tools when we sold that truck. So it makes, one thing, it makes more room on the truck because you don't have a pump and hose reels, so it saves room on the truck, and it's a lot more user-friendly.
Sure.
We did make that purchase and do have those battery-operated tools on our current engine now.
Okay, great. And then the other question that I had, the 1990 truck, do we anticipate we'll be able to recoup some of the cost of this truck when we sell that one, or not?
Do you want to know the selling prices of the last few trucks?
I don't know if I do.
You don't. It's the two trucks that we sold, very similar to this one. They were American Fire Eagle products on an HME chassis, two of them for $25,000.
So it's pretty insignificant. Yeah, okay. All right, just curious. Thank you very much.
And that's months of trying to sell them too.
Yeah.
We basically talked this vendor into taking them.
Okay, thank you.
I just also would like to chime in and say that I was amazed at the detail that you went into on the 134 pages of specifications that you had. And that when they reduced it down, I think to 22 on their summary. But you guys really went into details, and you really told them what to do. Now, they ought to pay you for designing it for them. You did a great job.
Thank you, Bill.
Anyone else? Yes, okay. What is the name of the outfit that rates fire departments?
ISO?
ISO, Insurance Services Organization.
Correct.
Don't they have some rules about 20 years regardless of what shape it's in?
They usually follow NFPA standards, and NFPA states at a 20-year life, you have your apparatus should be replaced. If not replaced, it should be refurbished to a point where it's meeting today's standards on certain, like on lighting, reflective.
Striping.
Just the appearance, some safety measures are factored in. That's basically what we dealt with when we refurbed the aerial truck and refurbed the 1990 engine that will be, that this truck will replace.
Speaking of the aerial truck, where are we in having to purchase a new one of those? Because that's like 2 million plus, right?
It's $1 million plus. Just for your info, the city of Walker just bought a demo for $1.2 million. So where we're at it, we're in my mind we're a few years behind the ball, but it's actually in our 6-year plan, scheduled for 2023, and my hope is to do it over 3 budget years. But I gotta kind of, I was picking one of the trustees' minds on that. He said, you should do that within a 4-year cycle of the board, so that that board approves it. So that was just another,
Something to look forward to.
something to look forward to. But yeah, it's, in the 6-year capital, I budgeted $1.5 million. I have projected $1.5 million. The way these increases, if they don't slow it down, that's going to be a challenge to get it under that. So.
Okay, let me ask
Unless
Cam-
we can, if we can partner up with other communities and, but a lot of them need that ISO rating. City of Rockford, we had this discussion with their staff. They need that to keep their ISO rating to have a truck in their jurisdiction, because anything outside their jurisdiction, they can't count. Even though we're responding, even though we're on their auto aid, it's not part of their equipment. Unless we became a district of some sort.
And whose rule is that?
That's ISO's rule. That's I can't count their fire station for the northeastern portion of the township to get those houses within a 5-mile radius of a fire station. So that hurts them that way.
Well, you guys are powerful, and you should work on them.
Well, we're working slowly with them, but.
I think you're talking about ISO.
Yeah,
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
oh, an ISO. Okay, yeah. I can say I have a good relationship with our ISO evaluator. Don't know if I have that much power with them to say, hey.
What you're saying, though, makes sense to
Yes.
us, so we wonder why they have a different mindset.
Right. I mean, we're all part of a mutual aid box alarm system that if we get a structure fire, we get 4 departments coming to help us at our structure fire, just like if we go to the city of Rockford, they get our full response plus Algoma and Cortland typically.
You're
So,
preaching to the choir.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I don't have any other questions, but let's go over this issue of the fire department's long-term heavy equipment capital improvement plan when we go over the capital improvement budget in a week or so. A week, right? The 19th. Okay, thank you. More?
As a note on that, I know the chief put together that nice chart that had all the capital expenditures for that. That'd be a nice document to have as we talk about that.
Good, thank you. All right, so do we have a motion?
We do. I move to approve the purchase of a 2021 Rosenbauer rescue pumper from Frontline Services to the amount of $512,750 as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes, Mr. Holman.
Yes. Go by that.
Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other truck committee members, if I could mention them, please.
Go ahead.
Lieutenant Rick Rotman, firefighter Eric Buchanan were instrumental in helping, it was a team. And this project's been so long, we actually had another member who was on who dropped off because of anticipated retirement. Lieutenant Vern Hawley also helped too, so. Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, we did replace him too. It was very short. Lieutenant John Denemy also. So, thank you very much.
All right, we are now at a new business B. Consider an application for a land division exception for a parcel located at 3301 Sunset Bluff. Having read this, our agenda packet, this has got to be, in my opinion, one of the most unusual requests that you're going to see. Mr. Spalding.
Art Spalding, 3301 Sunset Bluff. I'd first like to say that the fall colors in Plainfield Township are absolutely gorgeous this year. And as we head into a cloudy November, it's great to have an uplifting experience with all the other things that we have going on in our lives. On April 1, 1981, my 40th birthday, my wife and I bought 80 acres in Plainfield Township with roughly 3/4 of a mile of frontage on the Rogue River. We bought that property primarily because we wanted to build a new home, but we also didn't quite need 80 acres to do that, and so we decided to sell off parcels, and we ended up selling off approximately half of the acreage that we bought. Cameron, can you put up the slide with the survey? I don't know if you can turn that around. Okay. There you go. There we go. If you look at parcel 1, there's a box, and that's the home that my wife and I have enjoyed now for almost 38 years. You can see the outline of what is described as parcel B, which is a long snake-like parcel of property. And if I may, I'm sorry? If you touch the screen, it'll trace on there. Okay. The houses that are currently located, there's one about there where that red dot is. There's one under construction here. There's one located down here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and one there. So those are the 8 parcels that we sold. Roughly 40 acres encompass those 8 parcels. All of them are deed restricted so that they cannot be further subdivided, except for the one red dot there that's just below parcel B, which is about a 12-acre parcel, and they're entitled to divide that into 2 parcels. We have enjoyed very much this property for these years. In 1999, my wife and I conveyed a conservation easement to Plainfield Township over the property that is cross-hatched. There's about 20 acres there. The conservation easement precludes any building, any structures. It precludes the removal of timber, except dead trees or trees that are dangerous. It's basically preserved in perpetuity as a natural wild area. And that has probably 1/2 mile of frontage on the Rogue River. Although we have the legal right to preclude people from going on that property, I would have to tell you that fishermen do have a trail that they've cut in along the shoreline over the many years that the river has been available for that purpose. When we decided to start selling lots in 1981, the road had already started under construction by the previous owner. In addition to that, the Land Division Act was not yet enacted. The Site Condominium Act was not yet enacted. The township did not have a private road ordinance. The township did not have a land division ordinance. And so there essentially were no controls, no governmental controls over how we dealt with the ownership and use of the roadway. All of those 8 parcels have been granted an easement for ingress and egress to get them out to Childsdale Avenue. Each of those easement documents requires the owner to share equally in the maintenance and repair expenses that are associated with this roadway. Just 2 years ago, we spent something in excess of $20,000 to cut down dead trees, trim trees along the roadway, and to resurface the roadway. So we've, I think, done a fairly decent job over the years of keeping this in good condition, both from an aesthetic standpoint and from a standpoint of providing reasonable access, not only to all of the property owners, but also to emergency vehicles that might be required. And we have had fire engines for health-related purposes. And I did have a fire in my fireplace once, and I had one of the big trucks down around my house, so fire trucks can get in and out of all these locations. So I decided, I guess probably unilaterally, that the best way to maintain control over the roadway was to maintain ownership of the roadway. And so that's what I did, and I kept title to what now is described on this survey as Parcel B. It allowed me to control that land. For example, I have enforced the rule that we don't want to have political signs or for sale signs at the entrance to Sunset Bluff. We want to maintain it as private, and so we have enforced that kind of rule. My neighbors occasionally refer to me as the benevolent dictator. So as life progresses, we realize that things don't go on forever. And so this past summer, my wife and I sold what is described here as Parcel 2, which is the conservation easement, plus 12 acres that is to the east of Parcel 2. The remaining land that is in our ownership is approximately 6 acres in Parcel 1 and 4 acres in Parcel B. So we still own about 10 acres. So that took care of the issue of what do we do with the extra property we have. So now the question became, what do we do with the road? And how do I make some type of arrangement for perpetual oversight of the roadway? And what I determined is to create a nonprofit corporation that would own the road, just like I own the road. It would have the ability to control the road the same way I do. But all of the members of that corporation, nonprofit corporation, would be the owners of property who have access to Sunset Bluff, have legal access to Sunset Bluff. And I might add in that regard that you can see on the survey here, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. You can delete that. But you can see where the sewer easement crosses on the east side of the conservation easement and continues on down. And again, it crosses the river both at the north and the south end of this survey drawing. When my wife and I bought this property, the easement was owned and controlled by the Kent County Department of Board of Public Works, who oversaw the sewer system. I don't know how they built the sewer, but they didn't have any legal way to get to it. And so we eventually negotiated an easement arrangement with the Board of Public Works so that they would have access over Sunset Bluff as well to get down to the easement at its southern end. That easement now is held by Plainfield Township, so Plainfield Township now has an easement over Sunset Bluff to get to its sewer easement. And that easement also requires the township to share equally pro rata in the expenses of maintaining and repairing Sunset Bluff. And the expenses that we had in 2018 to do that, Plainfield Township paid one share of that expense. So there are no problems with Parcel 1 as far as a division is concerned. It satisfies all of the township ordinance requirements, and it satisfies the Land Division Act requirements. Parcel B satisfies, but it doesn't look like it satisfies the length and width requirements, but the Land Division Act specifically provides that the remainder parent parcel in a division does not have to comply with the width and length requirements. And so my intention here is to convey parcel 1 to a trust, which would, my wife and I would be the grantors. It would be a grantor trust, leaving parcel B as the parent remainder parcel, so that pursuant to the Land Division Act, it doesn't need to comply with the width and length requirements. However, the township ordinance, land division ordinance, requires that the parcel, all the parcels have to comply with the lot and width and area requirements of the zoning ordinance. And so that's essentially what we're looking to resolve, is the lot width and or area and width of lots or parcels. There's also provision in the ordinance that says that if a parcel is unbuildable and if a deed restriction is agreed upon and recorded, that the township can waive all of those requirements. And so that's what we're doing. We're asking the township to approve this, and it has been reviewed by Township legal counsel, and in his correspondence to Cameron of October 8, he suggested an approval option that had 4 separate conditions, if you will. And I have reviewed those conditions, and I do not find those conditions unreasonable. I don't say that I necessarily agree with all of them, but I don't find them unreasonable. So a couple of them will require still some further probably negotiation between Mr. Sluggett and myself in terms of coming to agreement on the specific language of the deed restriction and the specific language of the voluntary special assessment agreement. And one of the concerns that I have regarding the voluntary special assessment district is, obviously, my neighbors have to comply with that, have to agree to that. I haven't discussed that particular provision. They know of my intention to create an association to own the title to the roadway, but they don't know anything about this provision on voluntary special assessment. Now, I believe that Mr. Sluggett and I have had some brief discussion about the issue, that the reasonable standards for that agreement is that the roadway has to be reasonably accessible to emergency vehicles. That's the standard that I believe the township needs to impose on us in order to do a special assessment district. Now, as far as aesthetics are concerned, and whether they're cracks or whatever, those are aesthetic things that the neighbors are probably going to want to take care of long before it ever gets to the point of not being accessible by emergency vehicles. I mean, there are several quite valuable homes in this area, and they're not going to just let it sit around. So what we're asking the board to do, and I did not see that there was any intended action tonight. I do have to say that I'm leaving for Arizona on Thursday, and so if we get this resolved before November 20, I probably wouldn't be back to the board. But if it takes that long, then I'll be back to present it to the board. But we're looking to get your questions answered and to find out if there's a consensus on the board to go forward in this respect.
Okay, why don't you have a seat? And we'll ask Cameron to essentially lay out the township's position at this point. As a courtesy, because Art's leaving for Arizona, we wanted to get this on the table, and we wanted to get it understood and thoroughly discussed before we see it again in the next regular board meeting or two, and give it to you.
I would mention, however, Mr. Holman, that this application was filed in January. And so we took care of the parcel one.
Yeah, right.
The application was filed in January, and the division of parcel 2 and parcel A was taken care of administratively. Mr. Elam and I both agreed, because I had a purchase agreement pending, that we would wait until after that transaction closed before we proceeded, and that closed the last day of July. And so we've been basically working on this since early August.
Gotcha. Cameron will lay out where we're at in terms of what the township's thinking at this point. And then I think it would be productive, see if you agree, if after you lay that out, Art has a chance to, I guess I'll call it rebut. And then once he's done that, in terms of maybe addressing what you bring up to be issues or problems, then we can ask the board for questions and comments.
All right, thanks, Bob. And yeah, I would echo Art's comments. The timing of this is not something that he is rushing. He's been working with our planning staff for a while. The reason it's taken this long to get it to the board is this is a very unusual request. To our knowledge, we've not seen one like this either in Plainfield or elsewhere, where a parcel would be split out and set up as a nonprofit association, as is the plan here. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it does lead to some concerns. One of the primary concerns from our assessor is what value to put on the parcel. Legally, he cannot put a value of 0, and so what is the value there? So that's a challenge, but it also leads to the problem of, if this parcel is owned by a nonprofit association, which is the homeowners, and they don't pay their taxes, this parcel would go into tax foreclosure. So what happens there? You know, who becomes owner of that should that happen? So there's some irregularities. There's a reason why this probably isn't very common, but there are issues that we're seeing. So our attorney, Jeff Sluggett, has worked on this. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us here tonight. He had another community he had to attend their meeting as well. But he has been working with Art on addressing some of these issues, and that's where Art talks about the required special assessment and easements and other matters to ensure that these, should the board approve this, that those conditions are met as well. So there are definitely challenges because it is an unusual situation. The alternative that has been brought up and wasn't mentioned earlier is simply taking the roadway and deeding it to the adjacent parcels. So basically giving the sliver of land in front of each home, deeding that over to those homeowners. That would be the more common approach. That was actually the township's preferred approach. So there's, I'm not really sure what the con is to that, other than each property owner now has to take title to an additional sliver of land, but that was also proposed as well. So really the intent tonight is to introduce this topic. It's not as clean or simple as some of the other private roads we've dealt with. Recently we've dealt with Airway, with Covington Woods off of Rogue River, I forget the name. Thank you, Covington Woods. Because those are new developments, right? They're starting from square one, and as Art has indicated, he's starting with a situation that predated him in 1981. So it's much more complicated, much more convoluted in terms of what has changed in our private road requirements, the fact that we didn't have a private road ordinance back in 1981, and we didn't have the requirements that we have today. So he's working with some of those issues as well and trying to come up with a creative solution here. So it took a while because to be honest, we weren't 100% comfortable with what was proposed, and we wanted to see conditions put upon that.
Okay, before I ask the board for their comments and questions, Art, do you have any issues at this point?
Well, I didn't hear Cameron say anything that caused me a great consternation. I would indicate that from the standpoint of putting a value on this parcel, the value of this parcel really is incorporated into the value of the properties that have access to it, who have an easement right. I mean, the value of that roadway is incorporated in the value of the adjoining properties. Those properties would have far less value if they didn't have legal access to an established roadway. So there has been some disagreement between me and the assessor, and when I say the assessor, I mean the assessor's office, because it goes back long before your current assessor over what the value of the private road ought to be. Nonetheless, the condition of reaching an agreement on the valuation is one that will be satisfied. In one way or another, Cameron and I will reach an agreement on that. With respect to the issue of non-payment of taxes, I mean, that is a procedure that applies to every property in Michigan. If you don't pay your taxes for 2 years, I understand that in some organizations with smaller number of people involved, that there may be a greater likelihood of non-payment of taxes. I don't see that as a reasonable possibility anytime in my foreseeable future in this property, just because of the neighbors that I have. And we've never had any disagreement over anything in our neighborhood. We've had very great neighbors, and I have to thank them for all that over the years. I don't agree with the concept of conveying parcel 1 or parcel B to the adjoining property owners, because then you don't have anybody in charge. Every single property is separately controlled. They can do whatever they want to on the parcel, subject to the continued right of everybody else to have roadway access. The township doesn't have anybody to come to and say, hey, guys, you better take care of your road, or we're going to have to implement this process. With the association, you will have an individual that is the representative of that association that you can go to and say, hey, take care of this roadway. So when I looked at this process and tried to decide how I was going to go about solving what to me was a problem, because I knew that if I ever tried to sell parcel 1 and carry with it the responsibility for this roadway, that I might have trouble. I also tried to look at it from the township's perspective of what is in the best interest of the township. And frankly, I think the association is a far better result for the township than it is to separate this out into 8 or 10 or 12 different ownerships as far as the township's control of it. I mean, how are you going to control, if I didn't do anything and just left it the way it is, what controls does the township have? Who do they come see? They come see me, because I own the property. And that's why I suggested and want to and intend to convey this property to an association where there will be a place where you can go that will have some rules and regulations. And because all of these properties have the obligation to share in the expense, that association will be able to, they can't put a lien on anybody's property. We don't have that ability like condominiums do. But they do have the ability to go knock on the door of the neighbor and say, hey, pony up. And I might also add that we share the snow plowing expenses in the wintertime. And I've never passed on any of the snow plowing expenses to Plainfield Township. Thank you.
Did I tell you it would be interesting? Okay, well, you've read the attorney's letter. You've listened to the owner. You've listened to Cameron. I don't know if there's a perfect solution. There's more than one solution, as the letter said. I read it twice, and I'm thinking, yeah, any of this would work. But which would work best and which has some of the flaws in it that, as a township board, we might care about having one way as opposed to another. So who wants to speak first? Ben.
Thank you. I'll never assume I've seen it all in local government. I know that there's always something new. It seems to me that those aren't mutual exclusives, the creation of a association and the deeding of the adjacent land to the owners of the, I mean, I'm sensitive to Mr. Spalding's point about no oversight, but I think you could have an association to, act as a go-between between the residents and the township, for example, without necessarily having the nonprofit, the other corporation in place, the other entity in place. So to me, that would make this function more like other, at least to my knowledge, the way other private roads function within the township, with our relationship with them. So, I mean, that seems to make sense from my perspective. That's just my 2 cents on it. Not a question, just a comment. Am I understanding it wrong, Cameron, or is that?
No, I think you're right. And, I think to the point of if everyone owns a piece, who's in charge of maintaining it, I think that's the situation we do see a lot right now. And I think to Art's point earlier, these are homes of higher value today, and I assume will be into the future. And so you'll have homeowners that will insist upon a certain level. He kind of made that argument earlier and kind of went against it later. I think the prior argument serves the latter in that the homeowners will make sure that the road is of a certain caliber. That's my thought, because that's what we see already in Plainfield on a lot of these private roads.
Jack?
As you mentioned, this is a newie. I think Art has done a great job in administering this and caring for the people, his neighbors in this, and for the township and the conservation easement. Done very well. Unfortunately, none of us live forever, and you're realizing that, and so now we're faced with a decision that will go on in perpetuity, hopefully resolving any problems to your successors. I mean, that's pretty much the way I see it. I'm concerned about the whole maintenance. I've seen property associations. A friend of mine has a property association that he's a part of, and they have a private road in Cannon Township. And the problems that they have is with road maintenance, where one property owner says, well, I'm going to pay for the portion that's in front of my property, but this vacant land behind me, that's your problem. And there's a lot of contention between the property owners, and I don't know if there's any clean solution to this. I'm hoping, I'd like to know more about a special assessment agreement and what that entails, and whether that would help solve the contention issue. So I have some questions about that.
I think on Jack's last point, that was my question. We haven't really determined the special assessment yet, so I think we need that information before we make a decision.
Are you saying, Frank, that if the board wants to proceed in the direction of Mr. Spalding's request, we would want to see the details more fleshed out?
I certainly would, especially on the special assessment.
Okay.
Because I want to know how the other people are going to react to it, and I want to know if there's contention or if it's, like Art is saying. So, yeah, I would like to see some more details on that.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Jack?
I have one more thing. Aren't there specific guidelines or parameters that assessors have to go on in order to value property? And this is such a different situation. And isn't that what you're alluding to, Cameron, in terms of how do you value a property? I mean, he's not permitted to value it at $1, is he?
Right, he runs into the challenge of, he's got to follow certain standards. Even though it would, in this circumstance, act a lot like a condo association, it isn't a condo association. So legally, he can't treat it as a condo association, even though that would be probably the best comparable situation. So even though in a condo association, the common area doesn't get valued, doesn't get a value placed on it, it gets placed on the homes that are in a condo association. Legally, he cannot do that. So he has come up with a methodology which would stand unless challenged, right? So if Michigan Tax Tribunal were to rule differently on it, then it would change based on their ruling. But basically, he said, well, look at the value of the land around it, take it times the acreage, and then reduce it by the fact that it's not a buildable parcel, right? It's just roadway. Clearly, you're never going to construct anything on this narrow sliver of land, so reduce that value by 75%, which is a common structure for taking parcels that are unbuildable or some other way diminished value. So it's as close as he could come up with as to a standardized methodology for placing a value on this, but recognizing it is a very unique situation. He doesn't have any comparable data to go off of, so he had to create a methodology as to how he would put a value on it.
And to that point, Mr. Spalding, you alluded, maybe you said, that the value of the proposed parcel B would have to be negotiated before this is resolved.
That's not what I said. The proposal from staff and from Mr. Sluggett is that we reach an agreement on the valuation before it's finalized. And I said, we will agree.
Awful close to what I was saying, but maybe not exactly. From a legal point
If
of
there
view.
are other questions, I'll wait till other questions, but I'd like to have some time for response.
Okay. Anyone else before me? Go ahead.
I think I'm all set. The special assessment district makes sense, so it's definitely a unique situation. Oh, go
Put it
ahead.
mildly. Let me ask you, Art, what do you think it would cost, maybe ballpark, to pursue the alternative where portions of the road are assigned to adjacent properties? Every parcel would have to be resurveyed and redefined and so forth and so on. What would that involve, and what do you think it would cost?
Well, I don't know that all the other parcels would need to be resurveyed because we do have adequate survey information and legal descriptions so that that could be accommodated. So it would require a surveyor to go out and do his thing out in the field and do drawings for each of those parcels. I would guess, based upon what I've paid for survey expenses, it'd probably be a couple, $2,000–3,000 probably.
For all of them?
Yeah, just to do that, and then we would have to do deeds and all of that kind of thing. I can tell you that I very strongly oppose that process. I don't think that I want a situation where every single property owner in here gets to decide what goes out in their front yard. I don't want the owner of the parcel at Childsdale to decide what happens on the frontage on Childsdale. There's just a lot of benefit, in my opinion, not only to me, but to the township, to having a single entity or owner have control over this roadway, so that you have uniform rules for everybody, so you don't end up in the situation where one property owner wants to put a series of flags out in the roadway, or whatever, and has the legal right to do that, so long as they don't interfere with the easement rights. And so I just think the uniformity for the neighbors would be beneficial, to know that everybody's going to be treated the same and not everybody going to do their own thing in their front yard. I frankly don't see the benefit of that personally. Maybe it's just a difference of opinion.
So your proposal essentially gives the board of directors, so to speak, of the association, or maybe the association is the board of directors, the ability to decide those things.
Sure, absolutely.
And how wide is this thing? I noticed that the lower portion of the road is narrower than the upper portion.
Yeah, and that's just, that in part was predicated upon the topography, because there's a bluff basically on both sides there. So we didn't need to have a wider roadway because it wasn't physically going to work. The actual easements are narrower than the width of parcel A. I intentionally kept 67 feet so that if I ever did decide that there was some way of converting this into a public road, which never really seriously crossed my mind, I would have 1 foot on the north side to keep my neighbor from having access to it.
Grudge strip. Okay. All right, so let me just ask you in passing, when you were on the Township Planning Commission in the late 80s, early 90s?
I went on the Planning Commission beginning of 1985 and served for 9 years. And then 2 years after that, I went on the Township Board and served another 4 years on the Planning Commission.
Right. So you've seen the evolution of what the township has been able to accomplish in terms of dealing with situations like these. Who actually approved your initial lot splits and construction of this Sunset Bluff?
I did.
All you had to do was file something and...
I didn't file anything. I just did it.
So there was no mechanism to approve lot splits in Plainfield Township back then?
Not at that time.
Wow. And the Site Condominium Act didn't happen until like the early 90s, maybe late 80s?
Right. Now, in terms of the valuation issue, in a site condominium, the private road is treated as a common element. It's owned by the association. It's controlled by the association, and it has no tax value assigned to it.
Right.
So, and from my perspective, from a valuation standpoint, that's the most likely comp, if you will. It's not a true comp in the sense of appraisal, but it's the most comparable situation to this. I'm willing to agree to something more than zero.
Okay, good. All right, well, we don't intend, and Sue's not here, but Sue, I'm sure, has read her stuff, and she can take advantage of listening and watching the recording of this. So,
Can I add just
sure.
a couple more
Yep.
comments?
Yep.
With respect to Jack and Frank's questions, there already is in place a maintenance agreement, if you will, because every single one of the deeds that I executed to convey parcels has an easement with a specific requirement that the owner has to pay his equal share of the cost of maintenance and repair of the roadway. So there already is that agreement in place. And the association taking over title to the roadway would have that as well. I mean, those restrictions aren't going to go away. That's part of the easement. Those remain in place forever.
and what's the recourse if they don't comply? Circuit court?
Well, yeah, you could file an action in district court for their pro rata share to say, you owe us this money, you haven't paid it, pay up. But, you know, it's not like a condominium association that has draconian rights to force the condo unit owners to do whatever they're supposed to do.
I like draconian rights, because our condominium association has that.
But I would like, I don't know if there are any specific questions. I wasn't quite clear in Frank and Jack's questions as to what specific concerns they had about the possibility of special assessment being imposed. What Mr. Sluggett has suggested is that so long as we have more than 50% of the property owners agreeing to waive their rights in the event that that would be necessary, that would satisfy the statutory requirements, and therefore I don't need to get every single property owner's agreement. I just need to exceed that 50% limit. But if there are other specific questions, I'd like to answer them.
Well, I would have liked to have seen the agreement that all of the properties or 50% plus one have that, yes, this is a good idea.
As I said, I haven't approached my neighbors
Right,
about
exactly.
it yet, and so I'll have to, that's something that I'm gonna have to do.
And the other thing is, while you all have an agreement to maintain the road, there is no one present that is able to say to what standard you maintain the road, and that would be another problem that you would have to overcome.
That's not unique in Plainfield Township. I can assure you.
Well, I think what we can do, if there is a consensus, is ask our attorney to flesh out apparently the complex proposal, because the alternative proposal isn't that complex. I mean, the owner doesn't like it, but it's not that complex. It's the way, well, it was observed in my discussion with others on this. Could we find such a thing in the whole state of Michigan? A road that is a parcel?
I have no idea.
This may be the only one.
You might be the trendsetter.
We could call it the Spalding method.
I mean, all kinds of constitutional cases are known by the names of the plaintiff.
Right. Ben, or excuse me.
Bob, I talked this over with Jeff, the assessor, today, to get the background. He said this is the biggest parcel that he's ever had to try to evaluate, and that he can find any record of in this state. So that answers that question, that line. And he doesn't really have a good evaluation of it.
So we have something unique here, and if we're going to pursue something unique, we need to know what it is exactly that we're pursuing. So let's turn our money and our township attorney loose and flesh out what it is that Art's proposal would involve. Okay? It seems like there's a consensus because people are shaking their heads. Yeah. Okay.
I just want to make sure that that consensus is basically to follow what is in Mr. Sluggett's letter, and that I don't have to go back and have a further discussion with him or with Cameron regarding the issues that Ben raised specifically about, and you raised about conveying to each of the individual property owners, because as I indicated, that's not my preferred process.
Right. I think that's probably the more common, because yours is totally unique. And I don't think we need to have a further understanding of that. The only thing we need to understand about it is you don't like it. Right? Okay. Jack?
Procedural question. We don't have a motion on the floor. Are we in favor of tabling this then? Is this your
let's do
procedure?
this. Have a motion to table until should we give ourselves until the first meeting in November?
Yeah, I think we can have, well, I guess I shouldn't speak for our attorney, but I think we could have something ready by next meeting.
Okay, and if we don't,
At
we could
least-
always table it again.
Yeah, or at least provide an update of the status.
Okay, Jack?
Okay, make a motion to table till the next meeting.
Moved by Jack, seconded by Bill to table this item to the next regular meeting of the Township Board. Roll call vote?
Okay, Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes, Mr. Holman.
Yes. Okay, that was fun.
Bob, may I make a statement?
Sure.
I would encourage Mr. Spalding to go to his neighbors in the meantime and at least get a tacit agreement from them that a special assessment would be okay.
I will do that. I don't particularly expect a problem, and the reason that I don't expect a problem is I hope to convince them that the standard that needs to be satisfied for the township to impose a special assessment district, in contrast to somebody requesting one, is a much higher standard than, or a much lower standard, I would guess, than they will have themselves for maintaining that road. So that, I don't anticipate a problem, but I will do what you suggest.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, namely superintendent's comments. I'll bet you have a lot of them.
I do have a few for tonight. So, Reimagine Plainfield. We had a great contribution from Progressive, our consultant on this. We had, I think, 3 different sessions, or 4 actually, because there was an online session as well. 3 different groups getting together and basically brainstorming what can or could be done on Plainfield Avenue. I know some of the people in the room were able to participate. Thank you for your time with that. We had a generous contribution from Progressive in terms of their staff time to work on this. Just secondhand comments that I've received, it sounds like they were able to even do some internal education in terms of, you know, what the planners think is sometimes different from what the engineers think from other aspects of of their company. So it's good for them too to get together on these types of projects and understand, look, there's a rationale for why planners do things their way and engineers do things their way, and the two need to get together. So I'm looking forward to see the outcome of today's sessions and see what kind of ideas have percolated from that and what the committee can take from that and move forward as they work on their overall plan for the corridor. As Bob alluded to earlier, we have a budget meeting next Monday. We'll meet here 5:30 again. And so we'll go over the water fund, sewer fund, and then the capital improvement fund, which will be fun because Warren and I haven't finished that one yet. So we're still doing some fine tuning. There's some projects that are shifting around last minute. So as soon as we can get that solidified, we'll get those numbers out to you. Water fund and sewer fund are in much more solid shape. That's less shifting from year to year. It's much more consistent in terms of operation. So we'll have those budget documents out for you this week so that you can review them ahead of Monday's meeting. And we look forward to a good discussion on some of our proposed projects Monday, including fire trucks, right, guys? So
We bring our own food, or
we'll do a similar sign up as we did last time.
5
So,
o'clock?
yeah. Yes. Have food, and then meeting started at 5:30. Yep. Grand Rogue Park. So our newest park, we're ready to do a ribbon cutting and a grand opening next week, Tuesday. I believe 4 p.m. is the time we're looking at. And I see snow is in the forecast, so it's
pretty cold last time, too.
Yeah, it was. That seems to be our luck with ribbon cuttings right now. But hey, maybe there'll still be some leaves on the trees. It'll still look good. So no, I had a couple opportunities to get out there last week, and the park is really looking nice. Our staff have really worked hard on cleaning it up and getting the trails in shape. They were even out last week, and this is something we're going to have to deal with from time to time each season. We get a lot of flooding debris, and so last week they were out pulling tires and refrigerators and whatever washes up from the floods. We collect a good amount of it there, so we'll have to do regular maintenance on pulling those out of the debris piles, and we leave the natural debris, the logs that wash up, we leave them in piles on the shore, but pull the less natural items out of that. So Beautiful area. If you haven't had a chance to walk through there yet on one of the prior tours, make sure you do take advantage of that. Hopefully you won't need snowshoes next week. But the mature trees back there are just tremendous. So when my wife and I went out there Friday night and caught 6 whitetail running through there, so scurrying through the trees. So, yep, it's going to be quite a park. So looking forward to that. And kudos to staff for putting a lot of work into that. And if you haven't been out there recently, as I hadn't, I think you'll be impressed with what they've done. That's all I have.
Okay, board member comments.
I had a question of the board. Do we have anything that governs an ordinance that governs the air? In other words, we're detecting a person that's flying these, what do they call them?
Drones.
Drones around our neighborhood, and our privacy may be being violated. Have we covered that on anything yet? Because that's a thing of the future.
Yeah, we do not have, we do have limited drone ordinances, but it's limited to township parks at this point. We do
This
not
is
have.
in our area.
Yeah. I really anticipate that's something that's going to be regulated on a state and federal basis because it's going to be really challenging to have a patchwork of local ordinances on those types of things. So as that increases, I think we're going to see some state or federal regulations in place. There's already regular federal regulations on drones of certain sizes, but as they become more and more popular, I think you'll see something.
So we can't make them game and then shoot them down with our shotguns?
I'd advise against that at this point. So.
Ben.
Just to follow up with what Cameron said, I did have the opportunity to sit in on the kind of report out meeting from the corridor committee, Reimagine Plainfield, and I know Jen was there at Progressive as well, and that was really interesting to see, just some of the ideas that those folks had come up with today. Some of them more realistic than others, but I think the chance to kind of see what could be is really inspiring, and to see what they were coming up with working together, kind of piggyback on what Cameron said, and one of the gentlemen, Ryan, who was here doing the last meeting with us, said, as a landscape designer, I might see something differently than a planning person would. And the planning people saw things in different ways. And the funniest thing was one of them had sketched out really quite pretty sketch with boulevards, and immediately MDOT said, we have some questions about that. Let's some clarification. So there obviously are a lot of things that we're working through with that, but to see people that are experts kind of have a chance to brainstorm and collaborate and put pen to paper was really cool for something that we've been working on for a long time. So we'll have a lot more opportunity for more public input and more input from business owners and stakeholders. But it was a cool step today. Very cool exercise.
Thanks, Ben. Anyone else? Jack.
I'm just curious, ask Kathleen, I got a mask problem. Ask Kathleen how we're doing on ballots, input of absentee ballots. Do you have a sense for that right now?
Well, we're doing well. We're keeping up with everything. We still have applications and a lot of voter registrations coming in, so a lot more absentee ballots going out. Tina and Cameron have been working with Max from Sabo and doing a lot of media pushes and a lot of posting. So keep an eye on those. There's great information out there. And just refer people to that and share that information. And I think that's the biggest help for us right now.
How many are out?
We've had about 12,000. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
From our prior of about 4,800.
Anything else, Jack? Okay. Oh, okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you as can make it to the thing on the 20th after we meet on the 19th. I'm going to be temporarily residing in Saugatuck from the 21st of October until maybe the 11th of December. I'll still be a resident, because I just had my driveway repaved today. And, but I'm kind of planning weekends and meetings that I am scheduled to attend. One of the meetings I'm going to be attending is the DDA meeting, and hopefully we'll have something from Consumers Power after a year of trying to get it from Consumers Power, whereby we could put more lighting on West River Drive between Ballpark Drive and Pine Island. So they made us a proposal, but it's a matter of execution, and I guess governments are the only bureaucracies that are slow. Okay, good. Well, that's all I have, and looking forward to seeing you on the 19th. It's 8:30. This meeting's adjourned.